Hello everyone, you are on the channel Scary Story. My grandparents' house was my favorite place in the world. A rambling old farmhouse nestled deep in the countryside. It was a labyrinth of forgotten rooms, creaky floorboards, and the sweet, dusty smell of aged wood and potpourri. My granddad was a quiet man, a retired carpenter whose hands, though gnarled with age, could still fix anything. Grandma was the heart of the house, always humming. Her kitchen a constant source of warm cookies and even warmer hugs. I spent most of my childhood summers there. Those days were a blur of chasing fireflies in the twilight, building forts in the sprawling garden, and listening to Granddad's stories. But of all the nooks and crannies in that wonderful house, one place was strictly forbidden. The attic. The entrance was a small, square hatch in the ceiling of the upstairs hallway, with a faded rope dangling from it. "Just old junk up there, kiddo," Granddad would say with a gentle smile whenever my curiosity got the better of me. "Nothing interesting, and the floorboards aren't safe." Grandma would just shush him and change the subject. Their unified front only fueled my imagination. What secrets could be hiding up there, behind that simple wooden door? One summer, when I was about 12, a relentless, week-long storm trapped us indoors. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled like a lonely animal. Boredom, that great motivator of youthful mischief, began to set in. That's when I started hearing it. At first it was just a faint scratching sound from above. I dismissed it as a mouse or perhaps a branch scraping against the roof. But the sound grew more distinct, more deliberate. It wasn't scratching anymore. It was a soft, rhythmic dragging, a slow, heavy thump, drag, thump, drag. It sounded like someone was pulling a heavy sack of something across the attic floor, right above my bedroom. I told my grandparents about it. Granddad went quiet, his usual cheerful expression replaced by a shadow I'd never seen before. He just shook his head. "It's the old house settling, son. The wind plays tricks on these old timbers." Grandma looked at him, then at me, her eyes wide with a strange, unspoken plea. "He's right, dear. Just the house groaning in the storm." But I knew it wasn't the house. The sound had a rhythm, a purpose. It always happened at night, usually around 3 in the morning, waking me from a deep sleep. The dragging would go back and forth, from one end of the attic to the other, for what felt like hours. I'd lie in my bed, heart pounding in my chest, staring at the ceiling until the first rays of dawn painted the sky, and the noise finally stopped. My fear slowly turned into a defiant obsession. I had to know what was up there. My chance came on the last day of the storm. My grandparents, relieved to finally see a break in the weather, drove into the nearest town for supplies. "We'll be back in a couple of hours," Grandma called out. "Don't get into any trouble." Her words hung in the air, a warning I was fully prepared to ignore. The moment their car disappeared down the long, muddy driveway, I was in motion. I dragged a rickety wooden chair into the upstairs hallway and positioned it directly under the attic hatch. My hands were shaking as I reached up and grabbed the dusty rope. I pulled. The hatch resisted for a moment, then gave way with a groan, releasing a cascade of dust and the smell of stale, trapped air. A rickety folding ladder clattered down, stopping just short of the floor. Taking a deep breath, I started to climb. Each step creaked under my weight. The air grew colder, thicker. When my head poked through the opening, I was plunged into near total darkness. The only light came from a single grimy round window at the far end of the attic, casting a pale, ghostly circle on the floor. The space was vast, much larger than I'd imagined, filled with the silhouettes of forgotten furniture draped in white sheets, looking like a graveyard of household gods. Boxes were stacked high, their contents a mystery. The air was heavy with the smell of mothballs and something else. Something faintly metallic and unpleasant. My eyes slowly adjusted to the gloom. And then I saw them. Tracks. Leading from the hatch across the dusty floorboards were 2 parallel lines. They weren't footprints. They were more like grooves or furrows carved into the thick layer of dust. They were about 2 inches wide and perfectly straight, as if something long and rigid had been dragged or had dragged itself across the floor. My heart hammered against my ribs. The dragging sound. This was it. This was what I had been hearing. I followed the tracks with my eyes. They went from the hatch to the far, dark corner of the attic, a place completely obscured by shadows and piled up junk. Then they came back, stopping a few feet from where the ladder was. It was a clear path, back and forth, driven by a morbid curiosity that outweighed my fear. I pulled myself completely into the attic. I landed softly on the dusty floor, my sneakers making no sound. I had to see what was at the end of those tracks. I moved cautiously, weaving between the shrouded furniture. The silence was absolute, broken only by my own ragged breathing. As I neared the dark corner, the metallic smell grew stronger. It was coppery, like old pennies or blood. I reached the end of the tracks, where they disappeared behind a massive dark wood wardrobe that was pushed up against the wall. The grooves in the dust went right up to the base of it. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to climb down the ladder and pretend I had never seen any of this. But I couldn't. I had to know. I placed my hands on the side of the heavy wardrobe and pushed. It didn't budge. I pushed again, putting my whole body into it. With a deafening screech of wood against wood, it moved, just an inch. But it was enough. I squeezed into the gap I had created between the wardrobe and the wall. Behind it, the wall wasn't wood paneling like the rest of the attic. It was raw, exposed brick, and set into the brick was a small iron door, no bigger than a bread box, with a heavy, rusted latch. The tracks led directly to this door. The wood around it was deeply gouged and splintered, the marks fresh. My blood ran cold. This was it. This was the source. My hand trembled as I reached for the latch. It was cold and stiff. I wrapped my fingers around it and pulled. It was rusted shut. I pulled again, grunting with the effort, my fingers raw. Suddenly, with a loud crack, the rust gave way and the small iron door swung inward into blackness. A wave of foul, cold air washed over me, a stench of decay and damp earth that made me gag. I leaned forward, peering into the void. It was a dark, narrow shaft, descending into the foundations of the house. I couldn't see the bottom, and then I saw it. Hanging from a hook just inside the door was a pair of old, worn leather straps. Attached to the straps were two long, thin, wooden planks, almost like crude skis. But they weren't for snow. The bottoms were fitted with sharp, metal blades like ice skates, but thicker, heavier. The blades were dull and covered in something dark and flaky. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. The dragging sound, the parallel tracks in the dust, it all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Someone, or something, was coming out of that shaft at night. It would strap these bladed planks to its feet, and then it would skate, back and forth, across the attic floor, for hours, grinding the blades into the wooden planks, sharpening them. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. Who? Why? What was living in the walls of my grandparents' house? My granddad's words echoed in my head. The floorboards aren't safe. It wasn't a warning about weak wood. It was a warning about what was under them. Just then, I heard a sound that froze my soul. From the bottom of the dark shaft, a faint noise echoed up. A low, wet, guttural clicking. It was getting louder. It was coming up. Panic seized me. I scrambled out from behind the wardrobe, not caring about the noise I was making. I ran, slipping in the dust, my eyes locked on the bright, welcoming square of light from the open hatch. The clicking from the shaft was faster now, accompanied by a wet, scraping sound. It was climbing. I practically threw myself at the ladder, my feet fumbling for the rungs. I didn't dare look back. I could feel a cold draft on my neck, feel a presence filling the attic behind me. I scrambled down, my hands burning on the wooden rails. As my feet hit the hallway floor, I heard a loud thump from the attic. Something heavy had just landed on the floorboards above. Without thinking, I shoved the folding ladder back up into the attic. It retracted with a series of loud clacks. I slammed the hatch shut, my entire body trembling. I fumbled with the rope, trying to find a way to secure it, but there was nothing. Then, from above the hatch, the dragging started. Thump, drag, thump, drag. But it was different this time. It was faster, angrier. It was circling the hatch, searching. I backed away, down the hallway, my eyes glued to the ceiling. The dragging stopped. A moment of terrifying silence. Then a loud, splintering crack echoed through the house. Then another. something was trying to break through. I turned and fled, down the stairs, out the front door, and into the rain-soaked garden. I didn't stop running until I reached the end of the driveway, where I collapsed sobbing in the mud. I waited there until my grandparents' car appeared on the horizon. When they found me, covered in mud and babbling incoherently, they knew. They didn't need to ask. The look on Grandad's face was one of profound sadness and resignation. We never spoke of what I found in the attic. Not once. I never spent another night in that house. Years later, after my grandparents had passed away and the house was sold, I heard the new owners had done extensive renovations. They had, according to the local gossip, completely sealed off the attic. They said the floorboards were unsafe. But I know the truth. I know what lives in the heart of that old house, in the darkness between the walls. And I know that every night when the house is quiet, it waits. It waits and it sharpens its blades, dragging them back and forth, carving endless tracks in the dust, waiting for the door to be opened again. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe and always be careful about the doors you choose to open.